Judges 19. Now it happened in those days, when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite sojourning in the remote part of the hill country of Ephraim, who took a concubine for himself from Bethlehem in Judah. But his concubine played the harlot against him, and she went away from him to her father's house in Bethlehem in Judah, and was there for a period of 4 months. Then her husband arose and went after her to speak to her heart in order to bring her back. And his young man was with him, as well as a pair of donkeys. So she brought him into her father's house, and the girl's father saw him and was glad to meet him. And his father-in-law, the girl's father, prevailed upon him, and he remained with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and spent the night there. Now it happened on the 4th day that they got up early in the morning, and he arose to go. And the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Sustain yourself with a piece of bread, and afterward you may go." So both of them sat down and ate and drank together. And the girl's father said to the man, "Please, be willing to spend the night, and let your heart be merry." Then the man arose to go, but his father-in-law pressed him so that he turned back and spent the night there. And on the 5th day he arose to go early in the morning, and the girl's father said, "Please, sustain yourself and wait until afternoon." So both of them ate. Then the man arose to go along with his concubine and young man, and his father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, "Behold now, the day is drawn to a close. Please spend the night. Behold, the day is coming to an end. Spend the night here, that your heart may be merry. Then tomorrow you may arise early for your journey, so that you may go to your tent." But the man was not willing to spend the night. So he arose and went and came to a place before Jebus, that is, Jerusalem. And there were with him a pair of saddled donkeys. His concubine also was with him. They were alongside of Jebus, and the day was almost gone. And the young man said to his master, "Come, please, and let us turn aside into the city of the Jebusites and spend the night in it." However, his master said to him, "We will not turn aside into the city of foreigners who are not of the sons of Israel, but we will pass on by until Gibeah." Then he said to his young man, "Come and let us draw near to one of these places, and we will spend the night in Gibeah or Ramah." So they passed along and went their way, and the sun set on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. Then they turned aside there in order to enter and spend the night in Gibeah. So they entered and sat down in the open square of the city. Now no one was taking them into his house to spend the night. But behold, an old man was coming from his work, from the field at evening. Now the man was from the hill country of Ephraim, and he was sojourning in Gibeah. But the men of the place were Benjamites. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the open square of the city. And the old man said, "Where are you going, and where do you come from?" And he said, "We are passing from Bethlehem in Judah to the remote part of the hill country of Ephraim. I am from there, and I went to Bethlehem in Judah. But I am now going to the house of Yahweh, and no man is taking me into his house. Yet there is both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and also bread and wine for me, your maidservant, and the young man who is with your servants. There is no lack of anything." Then the old man said, "Peace be to you. Only let me take care of all that you lack. However, do not spend the night in the open square." So he brought him into his house and gave the donkeys fodder, and they washed their feet and ate and drank. They were making their hearts merry, and behold, the men of the city, certain vile fellows, surrounded the house, pounding the door. And they spoke to the owner of the house, the old man, saying, "Bring out the man who came into your house, that we may know him." Then the man, the owner of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brothers, please do not do evil. Since this man has come into my house, do not commit this disgraceful act. Behold, my daughter who is a virgin and his concubine, please let me bring them out to you, that you may violate them and do to them whatever is good in your eyes. But do not commit such a disgraceful act against this man." But the men were not willing to listen to him. So the man took hold of his concubine and brought her out to them. And they knew her and abused her all night until morning, and they let her go at the breaking of dawn. As the day began to dawn, the woman came and fell down at the doorway of the man's house where her master was until full daylight. Then her master arose in the morning and opened the doors of the house, and went out to go on his way. And behold, the woman, his concubine, was lying at the doorway of the house with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, "Get up and let us go." But there was no answer. Then he took her on the donkey, and the man arose and went to his home. Then he entered his house and took a knife and took hold of his concubine and cut her in 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her throughout the territory of Israel. And all who saw it said, "Nothing like this has ever happened or been seen from the day when the sons of Israel came up from the land of Egypt to this day. Consider it, take counsel, and speak up." Acts 23. Now Paul, looking intently at the Sanhedrin, said, "Brothers, I have lived my life in all good conscience before God up to this day." And the high priest Ananias commanded those standing beside him to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, "God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall. Do you sit to try me according to the law, and in violation of the law order me to be struck?" But those standing nearby said, "Do you revile the high priest of God?" And Paul said, "I was not aware, brothers, that he was high priest, for it is written, 'You shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people.'" But knowing that one group were Sadducees and the other Pharisees, Paul began crying out in the Sanhedrin, "Brothers, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. I am on trial for the hope and resurrection of the dead." As he said this, there was a dissension between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, nor an angel, nor a spirit, but the Pharisees acknowledge them all. And there occurred a great outcry, and some of the scribes of the Pharisaic party stood up and began to argue heatedly, saying, "We find nothing wrong with this man. Suppose a spirit or an angel has spoken to him." And as a great dissension was developing, because the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them, he ordered the troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring him into the barracks. But on that very night the Lord stood at his side and said, "Take courage, for as you have solemnly borne witness to my cause at Jerusalem, so you must bear witness at Rome also." Now when it was day, the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink until they had killed Paul. And there were more than 40 who formed this scheme. They came to the chief priests and the elders and said, "We have bound ourselves under a curse to taste nothing until we have killed Paul. So now you, along with the Sanhedrin, notify the commander to bring him down to you, as though you are going to determine his case more carefully, and we for our part are ready to slay him before he comes near." But when the son of Paul's sister heard of their ambush, he came and entered the barracks and reported it to Paul. And Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, "Lead this young man to the commander, for he has something to report to him." So he took him and led him to the commander and said, "Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to lead this young man to you, since he has something to tell you." And the commander took him by the hand and, stepping aside, began to inquire of him privately, "What is it that you have to report to me?" And he said, "The Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down tomorrow to the Sanhedrin, as though they were going to inquire somewhat more carefully about him. So do not be persuaded by them, for more than 40 of them, who have bound themselves under a curse not to eat or drink until they slay him, are lying in wait for him, and now they are ready and waiting for the promise from you." So the commander let the young man go, instructing him, "Tell no one that you have notified me of these things." And when he called to him 2 of the centurions, he said, "Make ready 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to proceed to Caesarea by the 3rd hour of the night, and provide mounts to put Paul on and bring him safely to Felix the governor." And he wrote a letter having this form: "Claudius Lysias, to the most excellent governor Felix, greetings. When this man was arrested by the Jews and was about to be slain by them, I came up to them with the troops and rescued him, having learned that he was a Roman. And wanting to ascertain the charge for which they were accusing him, I brought him down to their Sanhedrin. And I found him to be accused over questions about their law, but under no accusation deserving death or imprisonment. And when I was informed that there would be a plot against this man, I sent him to you at once, also instructing his accusers to speak against him before you. So the soldiers, according to their orders, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipatris. But the next day, leaving the horsemen to go on with him, they returned to the barracks. When these had come to Caesarea and delivered the letter to the governor, they also presented Paul to him. And when he had read it, he asked from what province he was. And when he learned that he was from Cilicia, he said, I will give you a hearing after your accusers arrive also, giving orders for him to be kept in Herod's praetorium. Jeremiah 33. Then the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah the second time, while he was still confined in the court of the guard, saying, Thus says Yahweh who made the earth, Yahweh who formed it to establish it, Yahweh is his name. Call to me, and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and mighty things which you do not know. For thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, concerning the houses of this city, and concerning the houses of the kings of Judah, which are torn down to make a defense against the siege ramps and against the sword, while they are coming to fight with the Chaldeans, and to fill them with the corpses of men whom I have struck down in my anger and in my wrath, and I have hidden my face from this city because of all their evil. Behold, I will bring it to health and healing, and I will heal them, and I will reveal to them an abundance of peace and truth. I will return the fortunes of Judah and the fortunes of Israel, and will rebuild them as they were at first. And I will cleanse them from all their iniquity by which they have sinned against me, and I will pardon all their iniquities by which they have sinned against me, and by which they have transgressed against me. And it will be to me a name of joy, praise, and beauty before all the nations of the earth, which will hear of all the good that I do for them. And they will be in dread and tremble because of all the good and all the peace that I make for it. Thus says Yahweh, Yet again there will be heard in this place, of which you say, It is a waste without man and without beast, that is, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem that are desolate, without man and without inhabitant and without beast. The voice of joy and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the voice of those who say, Give thanks to Yahweh of hosts, for Yahweh is good, for his loving kindness endures forever. And of those who bring a thank offering into the house of Yahweh, for I will return the fortunes of the land as they were at first, says Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, There will again be in this place which is waste, without man or beast, and in all its cities, an abode of shepherds who cause their flocks to lie down. In the cities of the hill country, in the cities of the Shephelah, in the cities of the Negev, in the land of Benjamin, in the surroundings of Jerusalem, and in the cities of Judah, the flocks will again pass under the hands of the one who numbers them, says Yahweh. Behold, days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I will establish the good word which I have spoken concerning the house of Israel and of the house of Judah. In those days and at that time I will cause a righteous branch of David to branch forth, and he shall do justice and righteousness on the earth. In those days Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell in security, and this is the name by which she will be called. Yahweh is our righteousness. For thus says Yahweh, David shall not have a man cut off from sitting on the throne of the house of Israel. And the Levitical priest shall not have a man cut off from before me who is to offer burnt offerings, to offer up grain offerings and smoke, and to perform sacrifices continually. Then the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah, saying, Thus says Yahweh, If you can break my covenant for the day and my covenant for the night, so that day and night will not be at their appointed time, then my covenant may also be broken with David my servant, so that he will not have a son to reign on his throne, and with the Levitical priests my ministers. As the host of heaven cannot be counted, and the sand of the sea cannot be measured, so I will multiply the seed of David my servant and the Levites who minister to me. And the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah, saying, Have you not seen what this people have spoken, saying, The two families which Yahweh chose, he has rejected them. They have spurned my people from being a nation any longer in their sight. Thus says Yahweh, If my covenant for day and night stand not, and the statutes for heaven and earth I have not established, then I would reject the seed of Jacob and David my servant, not taking from his seed rulers over the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But I will return their fortunes, and will have compassion on them. Psalm 3, a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom his son. O Yahweh, how my adversaries have become many. Many are rising up against me. Many are saying of my soul, There is no salvation for him in God. Selah. But you, O Yahweh, are a shield about me, my glory, and the one who lifts my head. I was calling to Yahweh with my voice, and he answered me from his holy mountain. Selah. I lay down and slept. I awoke, for Yahweh sustains me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people, who all around have set themselves against me. Arise, O Yahweh, save me, O my God. For you have struck all my enemies on the cheek. You have shattered the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to Yahweh. Your blessing be upon your people. Selah. Psalm 4. For the choir director with stringed instruments, a psalm of David. Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. O sons of men, how long will my glory become a reproach? How long will you love what is worthless and seek falsehood? Selah. But know that Yahweh has set apart the Holy One for himself. Yahweh hears when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin. Ponder in your heart upon your bed and be still. Selah. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and trust in Yahweh. Many are saying, who will show us good? Lift up the light of your face upon us, O Yahweh. You have put gladness in my heart, more than when their grain and new wine abound. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Yahweh, make me to abide in safety.